Well. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Ben. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm well, and I think we have another ghost with us tonight.
Well, yes. Look, you can see the name very big in your screen right now. It's the ghost, ladies and gentlemen, of Yuri Bezmenov.
One and only.
So it is a popular Twitter account, the ghost of Yuri Bezmenov, the leader of shenanigans, and you've just had a successful shenanigan, which I'm sure we'll get into. But this is what we do on After Dark. We freewheel, we have conversation with anyone and everyone. And John asked this man who we've been following each other for about a year, haven't we? On and off, me and you.
Yeah.
But it's nice to just have people come have their say, and we'll just shoot the shit about what's been going on the last couple of years and what's going on in the world right now. And we'll just spend a couple of hours maybe putting the world to rights. So John, over to you, my friend.
Well, first of all, welcome to our wonderful audience, and thank you for sticking with us again. What I would like to say is, if you have the capability of, please share us out to as many platforms as possible, so as we can try and build a bigger audience. So
let's do that
and share. Yeah.
Do that. Do that.
So welcome to After Dark, and I think this is episode 22.
I literally have no idea. I don't count.
Yeah, I think it's 22. But apart from that, what I'd really like to know is, who was Yuri Bezmenov?
I know this.
And why are you his ghost?
Okay. I can't believe you don't know that, John. In your media position that you're in.
I do, but
okay, right.
It's
for those that might not find.
It's a podcaster's trick to get you talking.
Right. Okay. So for the uninitiated, then he was a Russian KGB officer in the Russian disinformation unit. He defected to Canada in about, I think it was 1978, I think, and became very problematic actually to the Canadian intelligence services. And apparently the story is they took him as a bit of a backhander to the CIA. The CIA didn't want him for some reason, so it was something to do with the amount of information that the Canadians were getting provided with by the British and the American intelligence services. So the quid pro quo was, when they got troublesome defectors, Canada quite often got dumped with them. So effectively, he got dumped on Canada and proceeded to sort of try and integrate, and then became something of a whistleblower, and went public in 1982, I think, and started recording a whole series of videos with CBC, explaining basically what Russia was trying to do to the West in terms of destroying the institutions, undermining society, undermining the education system. And 40 years later, we can see the evidence, frankly.
We really can. We really, really can.
Although, to be honest, we seem to have done a pretty damn good job ourselves.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, at the time, I think it was started by the Russians. I think the in-house Bolsheviks finished it off in the last 10 years, I think. And,
I was going to say, John, we haven't really done it ourselves. It's just the product of what has been going on. And if you watch those videos, and I have watched those videos many, many times, he is so prophetic, isn't he? He really is. It's happened, and we call it the long march through the institutions at this point. But it was evident back then, I would say, that this was beginning, but people just turned a blind eye.
Yeah, I think it was the statist sort of, mentality. I mean, it was obviously from a Marxist background and but I'm not sure I would even describe it as necessarily, the results that we're looking at now, I don't think are specific to Russian objectives. No. I think, as you say, you've got the sort of just that mindset that existed within the West anyway, that has adopted it as a sort of methodology, and made it real, frankly. And,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the really interesting bit about some of his stuff is when he talks about like brainwashing and programming.
Yeah.
And you know, crikey, we've seen the evidence of that.
Well, yeah. I mean,
yeah, we have.
look at the start of the pandemic. 3-word slogans repeated
Yeah.
3 times. You know, I mean, that's classic
Yeah.
programming
Yeah.
technique, isn't
Absolutely.
it?
Yeah. Repeat often and loudly.
Well, this is it. I mean, we can talk to the existence of a nudge unit. Why on earth did there need to be such a thing if it wasn't about programming, about brainwashing? Just the name itself sounds sinister, doesn't it? Nudge
Yeah.
unit.
It sounds faintly paedophilic.
Oof. But what was that other name? The Psychological Insights Team?
Yeah.
I
The
mean,
interesting
Oh,
thing
the
with-
behavioural insights.
Oh, yeah, the
wasn't it?
behavioural
the
insights.
word nudge was actually deliberately chosen as a softer version of basically the psychological sort of, sort of, what's the word? Effectively the programming unit. The programming unit obviously sounds quite sinister.
Yeah,
If you call
yeah.
it the nudge unit, it sounds quite fluffy and it's a bit like fudge. So it's almost something. I don't know.
I mean, some of the people in there as well, we can speak to a Professor Susan Mishi,
Oh,
avowed higher up in the Communist Party of Britain, and nobody saw any issues there. I mean, I can't believe that our so-called conservative government didn't see any issues there.
Yeah, I think so-called conservative is a pretty good way of describing it.
I think so.
It's like communism is really the thing we have today, i.e. globalism, seems to be like an evolution of communism where they're just trying to take on the world. It's the same sort of tyranny in the long run. You have an elite that get everything and the pros do everything for you.
Yeah. But the thing is, we've made it sexy, haven't we? I say we, but the people that tout communism, that call for communism or socialism, they're middle class people who can sit in their London flats and sip martinis of an evening in a London wine bar or cocktail bar, and they have no idea what the working class man or woman goes through, or what we can and can't. We can't afford that lifestyle, but they think it's normal. They think they're on the lower end of society because they've been brainwashed into a completely different world.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, to them, communism, socialism is sexy because they think if they get communism/socialism, they're going to be able to enjoy that. That's their life. They're going to be able to enjoy that. That's what they're going to be able to do all of the time. They're going to be able to live in their swanky flats and sip cocktails. They have no idea, none whatsoever. And I really do like evoking the name of Yuri Bezmenov because honestly, everybody should watch those videos. They really should.
Should be on the school curriculum, I think.
I
Actually.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
There's a lot should be on the school curriculum that isn't.
Well, yeah, that's a fair comment. I mean, the point that he made, Bezmenov, was that how long it takes to basically to program a civilization, and it's effectively 20 years because it's three cycles of the school sort of system, effectively.
Yeah.
Well, he spelled it out more directly, didn't he? He said, "We'll do it through your children." He said those words, "We'll do it through your children," and they did. They did.
Yeah, but what? See, it's gone awry somewhere, hasn't it? Because this whole wokeism thing and I mean, we touched on this last night with the decadence, the whole deterioration of society, in my view. Kids not knowing their genders, everybody being confused, trans, all sharing the same toilets, dogs and cats fucking each other in the street. It's like, what's happened? Because those are not communist values.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's the thing I find actually is it's incredibly difficult to describe actually what you're kind of facing. Communism is certainly strong elements of communism in it.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
like you say, that there's this sort of there's a much more authoritarian side to it. I think that there's lots of people will say we've never done proper socialism is often the sort of response you get, and I have some sympathy with that. I mean, there is an element of truth in that, because I think it's impossible, because inevitably you get this situation where somebody takes charge, or you get the slightly more equal members of the society that do better. So
you've also got to remember, something like socialism can work on a commune level, right? If you've got a commune of people and you decide to work together and live together, it can work on that level, about 20 people, maybe 100 people. But when you start scaling this up, it has to become authoritarian by its very nature, because there are going to be people who don't want to do that. They don't want to go along with that. They want to get out ahead. They want to better themselves. They don't want to live in that groupthink or that mindset. And in order to make sure that everybody does, you have to have an element of authoritarianism. And so when they say, oh, it hasn't been tried, or that wasn't real communism, maybe it started that way, and then you very quickly realize that not everybody wants to live like this. So how do you make sure that everybody is equally poor? And I will say equally poor. You have to get the jackboot out. You have to stamp on the people. You have to make sure they stay in line. Otherwise, it just can't work. And so it's never going to work, and they just need to stop.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I always say that the problem with communism is it just doesn't deal with sort of human nature, in that, it's that classic line of equality of opportunity, but not necessarily equality of outcome. Absolutely. And because, fundamentally, people aren't equal. People have different talents and different capabilities, different motivations, and therefore, inevitably, some people will step forward, take a leading role, take risks, do things, make more money, be more successful, and others won't. And actually, quite a lot of the others generally aren't that fussed about it either. I'm not rich by any stretch, and I'm no particular aspirations to be. But given that I see people that are, and I know the sacrifices and the kind of compromises they make, which I'm not prepared to do. But and I'm like, good luck to them if they made it through sort of honest graft. Often that's not the case, which is a bit of a problem. But I mean, good luck to them. But is that a kind of? I do think communism, socialism, whatever you want to call it, does breed envy, and it does then drive you towards this lowest common denominator approach, where as long as everyone's equally poor, everybody's happy. Well, of course, generally in that case, nobody's happy.
No,
you will own nothing and be happy.
Yes, exactly, and that rhetoric is terrifying, isn't it? Really,
yeah.
that rhetoric.
I don't know how you describe that other than just like totalitarian. Really, that's
exactly.
Well, it's not communism or social. It's just totalitarianism, and it's basically we will. I mean, the thing that cracks me up with all that stuff is that you will own nothing, but we will.
Someone will.
Exactly.
Because you'll rent everything. Well, who are you going to rent it from?
Yeah.
So
let me guess.
All these leaders all went to the same school, didn't they? And when I say school, I don't mean school. I mean they all went through the World Economic Forum, young leaders.
Many of them did, yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Trudeau in Canada.
Yeah, Jacinda
Ardern, Tony Blair.
I think Tony Blair was kind of in at the start, and he's infiltrated many cabinets as well, hasn't he?
I mean, I think pretty sure he infiltrated Jacinda's cabinet.
I don't understand. I don't
want to go there.
I don't understand
in both respects.
Yeah. No, it'd be like kissing the alien, wouldn't it? You'd be lucky if you kept your tongue.
Hello there, Yuri.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I think, best move on, eh? Best move on.
You'd have to present everything flat, so you're like a horse, so it doesn't take your whole hand. Anyway.
I think it's one of those things. I think I'm very much of the view that, you know, it's the other way around. These people are selected at an early age.
Yeah,
they don't you know, go to these sort of schools or whatever, these groups, you know, that they get selected and identified as being the sort of people that they want to process through these places and essentially place in positions of authority.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And even the American presidents things. I mean, like George Bush is related to the Queen. You know, they're all in the same. They're all in the same kind of. They all circulate in the same circles.
The current.
I mean, I sorry.
No, you carry on.
I was going to say, I try. You know, I very much try to avoid going down all the sort of rabbit holes and the. But I mean, there are just objective facts about you know, powerful families that effectively have created dynasties of you know, governance, and it don't have to be a conspiracy theory just to see it in black and white, really.
Absolutely.
Well, you know what is it they always say? Follow the money.
Yeah.
And when you follow the money, you always come. I think it's the same three families, isn't it? At the top, there's the Rothschilds. There's the for God's sake, I've forgotten the other two. But there's the Rockefellers, and who's the third one? There's a third one that no one talks about. I'll find out and get back to you. But it's always the same three families at the top of the tree.
Yeah, well, is it not the Rothschilds who essentially own the World Bank, and then the World Bank literally loans money to governments who are then forever indebted to the World Bank, and.
Well, I mean, you know the economic system, you know how it works, and I mean the whole thing's a house of cards.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know how the economic system works to a level, but then there is another element to the economic system that's not out in the mainstream, and if you started going down those rabbit holes, you would be called a conspiracy theorist, despite the fact it's more than likely true.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all.
Yeah.
The paper's all there.
Well, exactly. But you get called if you start, like someone says in the chat, Shalini says in the chat, she's naming Soros, and while he's not at the top, he's certainly a financier of
I saw a picture of him.
Bad things, I will say.
I saw a young picture of him on Twitter the other day. Did you see it?
No, I didn't.
In his uniform?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
But the point I'm making is, if you invoke his name and you start saying these sorts of things, and like he's responsible for funding this, that, and the other, that's done this bad thing, that bad thing, they just go anti-Semite. That's the first thing they do. They say anti-Semite because he's Jewish. No. He is very heavily financing very, very bad things like Antifa. And for those who don't know what Antifa is, it's a terrorist organisation. And I don't use that word lightly. It's a terrorist organisation.
I would say it's almost exactly the opposite of its name.
Yes, absolutely. They call themselves anti-fascists while acting exactly like a fascist would. And whilst I'm not saying that he is directly handing money to these organisations, he does it through proxies like his Open Societies Foundation, and then that will go down to an anti-racism group that's usually very racist, and then that money will filter out to these so-called black bloc protesters who then start buying guns and body armor and ammunition and start going around quite literally hurting people. And the man at the top, where all of this money is coming from, is, for the most part, for many of these organisations, I'm not saying all, but for many of them, George Soros. That's true. And saying that does not make you an anti-Semite. I feel like I have to say that, John. I do.
Yeah. I think that's the problem, isn't it? So, so many of these things is that, you know, there's, like, if you did the Venn diagram of objective facts,
Yep.
and then things that people call conspiracy theories. The bit in the middle is almost, is a significant. It'll be about 90%, probably anywhere between 70
yeah.
and 90%. The
And then
overlap.
slap bang in the middle will sit us three and many others like us, right? We'll sit slap bang in the middle of that, because what we do, and I know you do the same, is we look objectively at everything from all angles, and we try and work out what the hell is and is not true. And I'm not saying that everything that would, let's say, stereotypically fall on what we would call our side of a fence is true, because there is disinformation, quote unquote, comes from everywhere. And
Yeah, I mean, I've learned that lesson in the last couple of months, actually, a number of times, on Twitter.
yeah,
Retweeting stuff, and then, I've ended up deleting things. It's pretty much the only thing I ever delete, actually, on Twitter, is if I know something is basically either fake or duff info or, old. Quite often one thing I've noticed on Twitter particularly is people, retweet something to generate a bit of outrage, and then you look at it and it's like 8 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm much more cautious now than I was a year ago, for sure.
Yeah.
See, that's the stance I've always taken. And do you know what? I've actually copped a load of shit from our side sometimes for saying something might not be true. Or
this is the thing I don't like, this our side, their side, because if you look back over the last 2 years, and there were a number of outspoken people at the beginning of the last pandemic, shall we say, and I think we were one of them, or some of them. Right?
yeah, I think we all were.
But I think the last 2 years has done a great service to people who would formerly have been classified as conspiracy theorists, because nearly everything that we've said has come true. And you can't really call people a conspiracy theorist once everything's been proven to be true.
Well, they can, because they do. They still continue.
Okay, but then they're explicitly wrong.
You're back into Yuri Bezmenov territory there,
Yes.
where you can put the facts in front of people, and however, solid the evidence, once they've actually adopted a belief system, you're frankly wasting your time.
Oh yeah,
because and I think the challenge for us, if you like, is that on the sort of skeptics side, is to really work hard to make sure we don't fall into that trap. Because that's how you just become, very easily discredited, don't you?
Yeah, well, that's the problem on Twitter. People react instead of considering and then commenting. They react too quickly. And they'll retweet things without giving it any proper thought or any proper.
Absolutely. And do you know what? I've had to put you back on the straight and narrow a few times, haven't I, John?
Oh, shush, boy. Shush.
Have I not?
A couple of times,
A
but
couple
only,
of times,
only because I was. Oh, but having said that, most of the times I'm not tweeting it to the populace. I'm sending it to you, my resident fact checker.
Yeah,
my fact checker in residence, if you will.
I'll just send it to my autistic guy. There you go. I'll send it to him.
Yeah.
Tell him, see what he thinks.
That's right, Ben.
Let's weaponize his autism. Come on, let's do that. I do not. You have no idea how lucky you are, John, with a disabled autistic guy as a partner who does nothing but take the piss out of himself.
I'm fucking lucky. I'm super lucky.
You've hit the jackpot there.
He has hit the jackpot because he can make autism and disabled jokes, and I laugh.
Well, and to be fair, he's also got the double card of being a cripple as well.
Yeah.
Which means he gets you around theme parks really quickly.
Yeah.
You get the express lane, nice one.
Yeah.
John had a good time at Alton Towers. He did. He had a good time at Alton Towers. He didn't have to queue for anything.
We had a good time at Disney as well.
Yeah, we did. We had a good time at Disney. Oh, I'm taking the family there in October. That should be fun.
Yeah, but you can't take them all on, can you?
Yeah, I can take
line.
Yeah, five people.
Oh, on the cripple line.
Yeah, you take 5 with you.
Hell.
Yeah.
Hell. That's an entourage, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's good. It's good. And Dexter also gets it.
Oh. You can go on two separate things at the same time.
We could go in 2 separate things at the same time, or 10 people, or 12 people technically. Yeah.
People would just hate you for that.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? They can live a day in my shoes, and then they can hate me all they like. There
Yeah.
we go.
There we go. Anyway, let's move on.
Let's move on. Yes. John.
Yes, Ben.
I've completely lost my train of thought. Please pick this
So,
show back
tell
up.
me about these shenanigans that you get up to, Yuri. You know, you
You'd
wouldn't
never
have
ask.
I really didn't think a ghost would be that socially adept.
It's you're making a big assumption. It just started actually from probably 6 months ago. Some of the people I chat with regularly on Twitter, most of whom we'd never met. We've only met on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I think on the back of lockdowns and all the other bullshit that was going on, basically, we all said, like, we need to meet up and have a bit of a party. And one thing I'm good at is parties.
Well, though you're going to give us some insight into the shenanigan now, we know people had a good time. We know that. We just don't really know what went on.
Yeah. What
was all
happens at the
very
shenanigan
wholesome.
stays at the shenanigan?
It was all very wholesome. So yeah, what happened? So I just sort of foolishly, I wouldn't say volunteered, but everyone else took a step back. So I looked around and it was like, oh, it's me then. Fine, okay. And I got a bit carried away, I suppose, in that I went and looked at a couple of venues, and I just kind of came away with a sense that actually, yeah, this could work. This could really work. And I always like the word shenanigan. I just thought it's a magnificent word, and it perfectly describes the sort of thing that I like to get involved in. And so but it was interesting actually. One of the great things about the shenanigan is the fact that so many people stepped forward actually to help.
Yeah.
I had some amazing support from people that I would never have imagined actually. That got involved in helping me sort of create some of the graphics for it. A contact of mine basically sponsored the disco. So we ended up, for instance,
There was a disco.
We ended up, well, it wasn't just a disco, we had basically a top DJ, like an international DJ that, was like well out of my sort of budget.
Who was it?
There's a guy called, I don't know if I could probably say, yeah, a guy called Carlo Rossi. So
Right.
He's online. So if you look at him online, he was actually in Saudi Arabia on the day before, and he flew back to do the gig because this is the sort of crazy thing that happened. Turned out he was following me already on Twitter.
Okay.
And he loved the account. And so when he realised that it was me doing the gig, he was all over it in terms of coming to do the gig basically. And
then, fantastic.
And I had other people that sort of stepped up to do. So the gist of it was, I thought, well, we can do a piss up, frankly, anytime, so let's do something a bit more interesting than just a piss up. But we will still do that as well. But so I started to look at I thought, let's do a sort of mini conference. So, and the idea was to give people some useful sort of things that they could take away.
Yeah.
That are going to help them survive the impending shit show that's coming down the tracks.
Yeah.
Be it from a personal resilience point of view, in terms of sort of mental resilience and physical resilience. I had a guy that I know who's a cyber security expert, so he did a 20-minute talk on, how to kind of keep yourself secure online. Some really good tips, the simple things you can do that, make you a lot safer online. And then through some of the other contacts, I had people sort of getting involved. So I ended up with a guy who used to work for Cambridge Analytica.
Okay.
So he was actually one of their behavioural scientists who basically gave us a 25-minute presentation on how not to get nudged.
Okay.
So we did that, and then I had another guy that I met through work actually. He was actually a Paralympic gold medalist from the Rio Olympics, and he did a talk on sort of, you know, personal resilience and how you come back from, you know, trauma and sort of, and so I had this stellar array of speakers, and then we had a dinner as well, and then this kind of like international DJ. And I mean, it was quite funny because like normally he would go to somewhere and they would have like 20 grand's worth of rig, you know, set up in this club to do the show, or in a big venue of some sort. And and you know, we basically lashed up a DJ set on a couple of trestle tables with some lights that we hired, and but the whole thing just worked. It just worked amazingly well, and everybody was there that seemed to have a great time. And
you sold out, didn't you?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, and well, I mean, what was fascinating, really, I suppose, is the fact that I'm very lucky. I've got a good network around me of people that have been awake to the, you know, the whole bollocks from day one, really. So
yeah.
I've never been isolated, and you know, in terms of like my other half, although she doesn't get involved in the stuff I get involved in, you know, we've never fallen out over it and any of that. Whereas I know, you know, people who've like basically ended relationships over it, you know, have lost, you know, big networks of friends.
Well, me and John are very lucky in that respect as well, because both of our wives have basically left us to it, or been 100% on board with it. So so we are, I think all three of us here are very lucky in that respect, because as you say, I know many people whose marriages have ended over this.
Yeah, I mean, a good friend of mine, her daughter and her won't talk to her basically, and won't let her see her grandson, purely because they disagree on, you know, some of the things that are going on. It's absolutely mad.
Yeah, that is mad. That is mad, and it's so heartbreaking as well.
I just don't. I can't fathom it, really. And what was interesting was how many people that came to the shenanigan, you know, had been really isolated, and they were so like sort of excited to be in a room of people when they could have a conversation about, you know, the whole bloody scenario and vaccines and things without
chill out
getting
with
on
like-minded.
eggshells.
Chill out with like-minded people.
And
I mean, the only other place really to have been able to do that were the protests. And this what you threw was actually an overnight affair, wasn't it, Yuri?
Yeah. It was a proper shenanigan.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah. So the party went on till quite late, I can tell you.
That's cool.
Yeah, and you know, everybody pretty much that was there had a great time, and I think that it just was, I don't know, it was a very life enhancing experience, really. And you know, I think, you know, I got a huge amount out of it just from the sort of the response I got and the sort of support I got, but just to see, you know, people that had sort of really been in quite a dark place, actually, you know, meet, and they just kind of came alive. You know, people literally kind of came alive in front of your eyes. It was a pretty amazing experience, actually.
So where did you hold this first shenanigan?
It was at the Holiday Inn in Kenilworth.
Kenilworth. Where is Kenilworth? Excuse
me. It's near, it's in the Midlands, near Warwick, sort of Coventry area.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And it was quite interesting, actually, how many people said as well, which was quite funny. You know, thank God it's not in bloody London.
Well, yeah. I mean, whilst London is kind of a central hub, because, you know, rail links and things like that all go there.
It's expensive.
I imagine the cost to throw the thing would have been 5 times.
3 times than that, yeah. 3 times as much, easily. I mean, that was the thing. It's a great location anyway, because it's very central. It's you know, great links to the road network and train station, literally, and quite a lot of, because it's kind of a touristy place in a way. So
you got Warwick Castle just up the road.
Yeah, you got Warwick and Kenilworth Castle. Literally, the hotel is in the grounds of Kenilworth Castle.
Oh, lovely!
It's quite a nice castle as well. So you know, quite a lot of people in the morning had a hangover, sort of walk around the grounds, and the hotel, actually, I mean, fair play, they did us proud, actually. You even the food was good. I mean, everyone was quite shocked, I think, at how good the food was, me
Well,
included.
at a Holiday Inn, I'm
Yeah.
quite shocked, to be honest, if you're saying it was
And,
good.
There were a few people there that eat in some very nice restaurants, and even they were saying actually how good the food was.
Well, you're doing something in July, aren't you, Yuri?
Yeah, we've got a slightly more bijou sort of affair. We've got more of a gathering really. We're doing one on the 2nd of July up in London,
Right.
which will be in a sort of a picnic in a park, we've called it. So, which I've literally today sold the last tickets for today. So, I mean, they're not really the tickets really are I'm only selling tickets to just limit the numbers.
I was going to say, there was something I was meant to do, and buying a ticket was one of them, and I completely forgot.
So I might be able to squeeze you in if you play your cards right, but we're limited in terms of numbers because of the location, which I can't reveal, but it's a very nice location.
Oh, and, I like the sound of that.
It'll be quite cool, actually. And then actually, there's quite a few people have sort of, missed the shenanigan, the first one, and then they can't do this one. So there's another one in the diary now for the 13th of August, which is going to be in Stratford-on-Avon, which will be a very informal affair, with just a an opportunity for people to meet up actually. So yeah.
And then you are, aren't you? You're looking at doing another grand shenanigan in October.
Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, I think I'll see how I get on through the summer first.
Yeah. But if you do go through with the October one, we will help you with that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
And we'll be all in on that, because October, I tell you what, I don't know why, and it's not just me.
When are you going to Disney?
In the middle of, I've already given him the dates that I'm away.
Oh, right,
don't worry, I've already done that. Right, okay. I'm away from the 9th, well, the 8th technically, to the 13th. So there's just
you're not away long.
No, just a 4-day in there. But I was going to say to you, I don't know why. This is just sort of an autistic person's thing, really. We all seem to be obsessed with Halloween. It's really weird. I mean, does your son Sean like Halloween?
Yeah.
My son loves it. I love it. Yeah.
25 and he still dresses up.
Yeah, too right. 32 with kids. Any opportunity, any excuse. Yep. Cover my face in fake blood. Have a laugh. Too right. So if we can put something together or do something together in and around the spooky season, and I think most of the people.
I was just going to say, funny enough, I can't stand it. Sorry to piss on you, Chips. Like I loathe it with a passion.
I was about to say, I guarantee you, 90% of the people that 90% of the people that I did see that came to the shenanigans would look for any excuse to get in a costume as well. I would say.
Right. I might have to bump it to November then. In that case, we do a bonfire night one, a Guy Fawkes one. That might be quite cool.
We could all just dress up in the old anonymous masks.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think I'm going to go to. So this past November 5th, I went to Parliament. And went to the Million Mask March.
Okay.
And nearly technically kind of got blown up. A firework exploded against my leg and burned me a bit and bruised me, and it was nuts. And I should not have been there, but I'm going again this year.
Right.
It got the adrenaline pumping. It
could be interesting. I mean, God knows where we're going to be, come November.
Yeah.
I mean, we might end up having to do a rave in a disused warehouse, the way things are going.
Well, I mean...
An underground train tunnel in the middle of the country somewhere that's never been used.
So let's move on a bit to the sort of more recent news. So yesterday in Parliament, Sir Desmond Swain stood up and questioned the skinny Sontaran himself, Sajid Javid, about a job listing that was available.
Two job listings.
They were director and deputy director for the Coof Pass, right?
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, the first concerning thing, is that Sajid didn't seem to know about the existence of these jobs within his own department. But second
No,
of
he
all,
didn't.
he has now confirmed that those listings have been removed. So what was
Have
that
they?
all about, guys?
Have they been removed?
Well, they're saying they have.
Apparently, yeah. Apparently. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I do think that there's an element of government that is just kind of like, it's like a super tanker.
Yeah.
In that bits of it are, you know, are almost out of control, and therefore, you know, to be, you know, the minister, you know, have a huge brief, and, you know, to give them some credit, you can't be on top of all of it. And I think stuff, once it gets put in train, it is literally like stopping a runaway train, I think.
Although,
And,
to be fair, that's a pretty high profile job. I think it was around about 70 odd K.
Yeah, and it was permanent.
And it was permanent. And people have been pointing it out for quite a while.
And then all of a sudden, Mr. Javid says, first of all, he doesn't know about these jobs in his own department.
He looked very shaky as well when he was discussing it.
And
yeah, he made an interesting comment, I thought. He said that, you know, like, I don't know if I'll paraphrase it, but he said, like, you know, it will never happen.
Yeah.
And I thought, kind of interesting.
Do you think, do you think then possibly those jobs reappear, but with a slightly different name?
I mean, it's an interesting question, isn't it? I mean, I was, I suppose, pleasantly surprised in a way, in that, you know, once the COVID passes, you know, the vaccine pass had been introduced, I actually was relatively confident that was, you know, we'd struggled to ever get the things taken out. And the fact, I mean, I, you know, go to a lot of sport and gigs and things, and you know, I was perfectly prepared to never go again, you know, on principle, actually, because, you know, I simply refused to, you know, the idea that you take, you know, a still in development product, you know, that from a health point of view has no benefit to me, just to go and watch a football match is well, it's beyond parody. Really. I know plenty of people. It's absolutely beggars belief, doesn't it? I just
well. I was never really bothered about it, Yuri, because John can obviously attest to this. I was always confident that you could do whatever you wanted anyway. So much that I was so brazen about the whole thing that in October last year, when it was all in full effect and full force, I entered France.
Right.
Yeah. I entered France and then took John to Disney.
Right. Okay.
Didn't I, John?
Yes, you did. And in the end of October and November, I went on an eight country European tour.
He did. With
my family, and not one of us, and not once asked, and only once refused service.
Yeah, me and John had a lovely sit-down meal in Planet Hollywood when you were supposed to be with pass, didn't we, John?
Yeah.
You could.
People could cheat a little.
Oh yeah, we did cheat a little, Barry.
Yeah. But there are ways and means around things. But when I went on the 8-country tour, we were quite upfront. We didn't have one, and no one asked.
When we entered Disney, I presented a screenshotted QR code from a woman named Susan. Just for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
We made an episode called Barry and Susan's Big Day Out.
We did.
I suppose you have got quite long hair, Ben. So
he does, yeah.
Well,
but he did have quite impressive.
To be fair, who's going to question it these days? You know,
yeah,
you identify
exactly.
Susan.
The guy,
perfect.
The guy did a double take and called his friend over, who said, "Wait."
It's true.
Shrugged his shoulders, yeah.
Yeah, he looked at it, looked at me, called his friend over, looked at it, looked at me, and they just went, okay.
I mean, it's interesting. One of the I do wonder, and I never really experienced it because I was never in a position to need to, I suppose. But how much of it you know, was like, there was a huge amount on the media, and like you'd see it all over Twitter, particularly, where, you know, people showing these really aggressive, like policing sort of, you know, of like supermarkets and things. And I always thought how much of that is just like, you know, effectively propaganda. And
I never saw any problems in supermarkets. And remember, I was in France, which were like mental.
Yeah.
I mean, they were absolutely mental, and I never saw any problems in supermarkets anywhere.
Yeah, how much of it was like conditioning, or I don't know, sort of.
Well, here in England, when it came to the supermarkets thing, and you probably did the same as me, Yuri, obviously didn't wear a face covering in a supermarket. I only ever got challenged once by a Morrison security guard, and I had an A4 copy of the mask legislation in my pocket, and I filmed this at the time, so I filmed it as it was occurring. A police officer came over, and I was very calm, and I was very nice to her, and I handed her the legislation. She turned around to me and she went, "Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'll deal with them, and let me go shopping."
Yeah. That was the thing. I mean, I always thought
she didn't let you go shopping. What she did was she prevented them stopping.
Yeah, she prevented them stopping me from going shopping. And obviously, I did have the Vision Express incident as well, where 2 members of staff got sacked for refusing to help me. Because the first one kicked me out of the chair when I was having an eye appointment because I wouldn't wear a mask, despite the fact that I had signalled that I was exempt, which was against the law. Can't refuse service for that.
Yeah.
And then the second one called the police, and then gave my details to the police officers illegally. So he was sacked, and the eye examiner, she was sacked as well. And do I feel bad about that? No,
I wouldn't either. I mean, the thing I find extraordinary with all of that is it was just the willingness of just regular people to become, you know, mini Nazis.
Yeah.
Well,
implementing.
You only have to go back 70 years to.
I mean, it's just extraordinary, isn't it? They talk about the banality of evil, don't they? You know, and that, and I think we got pretty close to it in terms of, like, you know, the levels of sort of, you know, self-policing, or, you know, certainly, you know, neighbour policing that you were seeing. And I just never would have seen it in this country, but there you go. It was a bit of a shocking experience from my point of view.
Well, no, and all people needed to do throughout all of this was just assert their right their rights, and you didn't have to be rude, right? You did not have to be rude to anybody. You didn't have to explode at anybody. In fact, I took great pleasure in being calm, collected, and simply telling them that I was going to do this stuff and they weren't going to stop me. My favourite thing to do, and this was just for shits and giggles more than anything, because it got to the point where I was just trolling everybody in real life, as I'd ride to the supermarket on my mobility scooter. I could have driven there, right? But I would ride there on my mobility scooter because I knew there'd be a massive queue outside the supermarket, and then I'd just ride past the queue with a big smile on my face and ride straight into the shop. And they'd all look at me like, what is he doing? And I'd just be like, I'm not cattle, and point at the red light and go on in. And oftentimes I actually found, especially at my local co-op, they'd simply follow me in. They would simply follow me in. It's almost like they were waiting for somebody to tell them that it was okay to not act like an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. I mean,
Anyway.
Yeah.
Tell me something, Yuri. Have you ever frozen a potato?
Ever frozen a potato?
I'm out.
I think I can safely say no.
You know what I'm talking about?
I don't. I've got a feeling I'm going to regret it, though.
Well, we had a little skit last night about frozen potatoes on our show.
And I think this actually leans into how stupid some people really can be.
Well, so the headline was, doctors warn people not to stick frozen potatoes up their anus. Apparently, it's an old wives' tales cure for hemorrhoids. And apparently people because they haven't been able to see a doctor, have started doing these things. Now, I think it does say slice the potato, but actually what I think you mean is make chips.
I mean,
so you could probably just buy McCain's chips and use them.
I was going to say something there, but I thought better of it, actually. A nice Jersey Royal might be all right.
I mean, it'd certainly probably be small enough.
So my first thought when I read the headline was, how is one to defrost your potato quickly, other than by doing that?
I mean, I guess, we shouldn't be shocked at anymore, but
No, we shouldn't.
Capacity of people to do bizarre things to themselves
Yeah.
is almost limitless, isn't it? So
Well, yeah. I mean, you ask people to do ridiculous things, cover their breathing orifice, and they gleefully carry on, don't they?
They do. They just do as they're told, because
the best one had to be the St. John's Ambulance advice on how to do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
It was don't do mouth to mouth. If a person is struggling to breathe, cover their mouth and nose with a folded towel or a damp cloth.
Throw a cloth over their face. Give them the full waterboarding experience.
Suffocate them. And you know what? That's still the advice now.
I know.
Although, ladies and gentlemen, bit of news that went very quietly under the radar.
Yeah.
Here's a bit of news that went very quietly under the radar, but it is real.
How did I hear this? I heard this morning.
As of yesterday, it is no longer a quote-unquote requirement to wear a face covering in either your GP or the hospital. It is now personal choice.
They've dropped all medical requirements.
Yep.
And medical establishments.
Although many GP surgeries and hospitals did not get the memo.
Well, apparently not.
That's how quietly it went under the radar. In fact, my wife just yesterday, on the day it was dropped, had an asthma review because she's heavily asthmatic. So first of all, she was exempt anyway. And yet they said to her, "You leper, you sit in the foyer. You wait in the foyer, leper." And they separated her and put her in the foyer, despite the fact there is no requirement anymore. So I'm pretty sure they just broke the law.
This wasn't what I was thinking about. What I was thinking about was the assassination attempt.
No, I was gonna get to that because it leans into how people will do things because of their programming, and it leans right back into the teachings of Mr. Bezmenov, because it is the leftist, woke, authoritarian mindset. Did you know, Yuri, that Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, someone tried to assassinate him yesterday?
Right, no, I didn't.
A leftist tried to assassinate Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh yesterday. He was foiled near Brett's home. He was arrested, loaded gun. He was going to Brett Kavanaugh's house to murder him.
And he said that to the police.
It appears he did indeed say it. He did admit it. But just a few hours earlier, Chuck Schumer, the Democrat, was on TV at the podium saying, "Brett Kavanaugh, you will feel the full force of this whirlwind when it comes to the Roe v. Wade demonstrations." And it looks like somebody took a cue from that. Somebody brainwashed may have taken a cue from that and went and tried to assassinate a Supreme Court justice in his own home. And then what's even scarier is the people that are obviously ideologically aligned with the would-be assassin, i.e. the news media, have suppressed it big time.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of the media, nothing surprises me. I mean, I think the kind of the real moment of clarity for me was I was at some of the London protests in 2020, and I think that actually the big one I went to would have been the one in April last year in London.
Yeah.
And there must have been upwards of getting on for 500,000 people there.
Oh,
easily.
there was more than that. I was there also. I was riding around on my mobility scooter filming, and many of the people in the chat were there with me. There was far more than half. I would say upwards of 1 million.
It could have been, because I mean, at one point the queue basically it went from Hyde Park all the way to Blackfriars, down to the embankment, and halfway back up the embankment. I mean, so I've been to big football and rugby crowds, and I know what 100,000 people looks like, and it was way more than that.
Absolutely.
But at the time, I was following some of the BBC. I won't call them journalists, because that would be a disservice to actual journalists.
Yeah, what we call them here on this show is propagandists.
Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. And I was following Mariana Spring, the disinformation specialist, and some of her colleagues, and they were having these conversations about, and I'm thinking, I actually think they either just lie by default, or they believe their own sort of slightly
I think they believe
bizarre worldview.
Yeah, I think they live in fluffy unicorn land, and
I think and they basically, there was a conversation taking place where they collectively convinced themselves that this march of upwards of 500,000 people, predominantly they're protesting about civil liberties and basic, freedoms, was circa 10,000 anti-vaxxers.
Actually, they actually said it was a crowd of hundreds, I believe. They said hundreds of anti-vaxxers.
Did they not do a kind of ad hoc shoot in a side street?
She did.
To try and make it look bad.
She stood in a side street under scaffolding, wearing a muzzle, right, and did a bit of a broadcast from the march, and did not in any way, shape, or form show off how big it was.
I mean, what was interesting, I had a sort of an interesting experience, because when I went back into work the following week, I took some video footage of the march, from various places along the march, and showed it to people that, in the office where I worked. And it was quite an interesting conversation, because people said, so what did you up to at the weekend? I said, I went to London for a day out. You
can't do that. Don't be silly.
Bit of a crowd. I said, there's quite a crowd up there. And they go, what was going on then? And they literally had no clue.
Of course they didn't.
No clue whatsoever of what was going on. So I showed them some of this video footage. I said, and they're like, oh my God. I said, yeah, there's probably 500,000 people there. Didn't you see it on the BBC? No, and it's just extraordinary that, it just became very obvious then that, there was an entirely orchestrated campaign to suppress all forms of dissent in relation to the COVID narrative.
And why that was, don't you? It was because they were worried that, and the instruction to do so, to not cover these things, must have come from much higher than the BBC newsroom, put it that way. Because I would imagine the nudge unit themselves probably had a hand in it, because they thought, if the country sees 500,000, 1 million plus people marching through London, absolutely fine and dandy, not covering up, not separating themselves from one another, hugging, partying, having a great time, making some noise, everyone else is going to start thinking, well, I want to do that. And we can't have that. We can't have people wanting to have, just normal, regular interactions and community experiences.
You can't have people having social intercourse, but you just can't have them having it.
No, and in fact, our own leaders tried to tell people to have actual intercourse with a mask on, didn't they, John?
I mean, that was the thing, really. I also remember there's this whole, there's like a community of activist, doctors, most of whom don't seem to practice. They seem to be full-time Twitter activists. Dr. Rachel Clark, for example.
Dr. Oxford.
Oh,
yeah, Dr. Oxford.
She's a nasty piece of work.
And some of the stuff that was being tweeted on the day, like, I'm in tears watching this. There's going to be like devastating consequences. There'll be thousands of people dying, and it's like, Jesus Christ. And like, guess what? Nobody died.
Dr. Juju, Dr. Julia Grace Patterson, the snake oil
lady,
salesman,
yeah.
as we call her. Have you seen her lately, Yuri? Have you seen her latest tweets?
No, I blocked her actually. I
So-
can't. I don't want it on infecting my timeline, so I don't.
So Juju is having a fire sale, a going out of business sale, if you will. She is selling off all of her remaining stock at 50% off.
Your
Hey,
heart
guess
bleeds.
who's come back?
Who?
Professor Chris Whitty's made a tweet today.
Oh, what, really, Chris Whitty, or is it Adam?
No, it's the blue tack, real Chris Whitty.
Oh, what's he tweeted? Come on, tell us, John.
CMO England.
Go on, then.
He said the damage caused by cigarette companies is staggering, including heart disease, stroke, COPD, lung cancer, and multiple other cancers. Most smokers wish to quit but cannot, as the industry has addicted them at a young age. Their choice has been taken away. Bold action is needed.
Well,
It
no.
sounds like he's trying to deflect from possibly other causes.
Well, I think
All
that's a
those
bit.
things.
I think that's a bit twofold, and you can both correct me if you think I'm wrong here. But I think obviously there is an element of these things are being caused by smoking. Yeah. But also, I think there's an element of I want them to forget I ever had anything to do with any of those ridiculous unscientific restrictions. Quick, let's talk about smoking.
And he's not mentioned the pops.
No. I honestly do think that people like Whitty and Valance should worry about their positions professionally, because surely at some point everything that they predicted is going to be proved to have been completely wrong. I mean, we all know it was wrong. Every single prediction they got was 100% wrong, and I'm more than happy to say that because it's true. But I surely think that they must worry that it's going to become public knowledge, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. Do they really?
You'd like to think so, but I'm not so sure they do. I think.
I think they live in a little bubble as well, and they think they're untouchable. And effectively they are, because, I mean, you've seen people going, people must swing for this, people must pay, there must be repercussions, but none of these people are going to get pulled up for anything.
And also, didn't a guy quite literally go to jail for hugging Chris Whitty?
Yeah, basically,
Yeah.
It was an exuberant hug, I would say. It was probably ill-judged, but
I don't think
it was a bit much to send them to jail.
It was a bit much. It was a bit much for any prosecution of any kind, I would say.
Well, there was no physical injury.
It wasn't an assault, was it, by any stretch?
It was an assault with a friendly weapon.
Yeah, but the thing is, that must speak to the sort of bubble they think they're in, or at least Whitty himself. He must think he's protected, from pretty much anything, right?
Well, essentially they are, aren't they? I mean,
they are.
I mean, the likelihood of. I mean, one of the things that was a red flag to me early on was when I sat through, I think, one of the first press conferences and looked at some of the stats they were presenting, and I was thinking, well, they were showing this scary-looking graph of, the number of people dying, and I'm thinking, well, where's the reference point? What's compared to what was my sort of immediate reaction? And one of the first things I looked at, like literally probably the first week when they started reporting, some of the stats was, well, how many people normally die every day?
Yeah, it's 15 to 1600.
Yeah.
And I was actually shocked. I remember being quite shocked when it's like 1600. And I'm like, crikey. And then you sort of think about it. You think, well, actually, I probably know a couple of people. So, and immediately then, and then there were so many red flags early on, when they started talking about, deaths within 28 days of a positive test. And you go, hang on a minute. What the hell? And,
you should see some of the comments in these Twitter replies.
Okay, read us some, John. Read us some of the replies to Chris Whitty.
Get wrecked, monster. You've got hell to pay for what you've done over the past 2 years. LCG says, covering up the vax damage. Life is difficult enough says, people smoke to combat stress. CMO England is a source of stress. Bonnie Boy says, Mr. Whitty, you told millions of people to take an mRNA jab they didn't need, and that may not work. It's causing no end of health problems and death, allegedly. he didn't use my exact terminology here, you can understand.
Yes.
Yeah, Daniel says, do you have shares in a new treatment being released to treat people from the effects of smoking? I bet you do. Jilly says, now do treatment damage and death? Bloody hell, yeah. There's nobody saying anything good.
So what
It's
you're trying
spicy, but isn't it?
So what you're trying to tell me is that public sentiment appears to have turned against Mr. Whitty?
Oh, I haven't seen anything actually. Yeah, here's one. Trying to cover it for yourself, eh? Yep.
Got to be really careful there, Ben, when you talk about public sentiment. Public sentiment and Twitter sentiment aren't the same thing.
No,
true,
yeah,
but,
and do you know what? I've tried to tell people. That's one of the major things I have tried to tell people for the last 2 years.
But normally you do see one or two you're giving support, but there's absolutely nothing here.
No, and that is astonishing. But then you also have to wonder. I mean, let's talk about Mr. Musk and his allegation that 20% of Twitter accounts at minimum are quote unquote bots. So,
Well, the big breaking news there.
right,
Gettr have agreed to give him the list.
really?
Yep. What's his name?
Parag Agarwal.
Yeah, well, whatever. They have agreed to give the list. So they're giving them the list of all the users.
Of all the users on Twitter.
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting. That.
Mm-hmm.
But
So we should find out.
But still, let's say that he is correct, or it's even higher than 20%. Maybe this Adam calls it sentiment management. Adam's the third member of our team, Yuri. And he calls it sentiment management, where a whole basically raft of or team of bots are sent out or programmed, I guess, to tweet in favour of a certain sentiment in order to help with the nudging. And perhaps
trend as well, presumably.
But perhaps defending that certain narrative and Mr. Whitty just isn't part of the sentiment anymore. And therefore you're seeing overwhelmingly negative responses, because that's what you would have seen anyway without the sentiment management. Do you get what I'm saying, John?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
I've no doubt that goes on. I mean, you've only got to look at some of the. I mean, the one that made me laugh this week, and I just think, on what planet? All the talk about Jeremy Hunt. It's just like, there was a piece in the Telegraph saying about how he's part of the dream team, and I'm like, it's just staggering that if you were to do I mean, it's ironic actually, because even within the NHS, I mean, I know people that work in the NHS, and he is reviled at a level that shocks even me, in terms of the opinion people have.
Some of our people in the chat right now work for and with the NHS, and I can tell you now that name is one we don't invoke.
Yeah.
I believe I called myself just the other night, because I don't know if you can see, tonight I'm Stalin, right? But the other night I called myself Jeremy C-UNT, and I believe that's exactly what pretty much anybody within the NHS thinks of this man. And I believe was it a BBC news reader who actually did flat out, was it Victoria Derbyshire in fact, that said Jeremy Cunt.
It might have been, or was it Koonsberg?
Was it not the girl on Sky?
I'm pretty sure it was Victoria Derbyshire.
I think it was actually. I think you're right, yeah.
And then I'm pretty sure she said, I never say that, it's mainly men that say that. That's what I'm pretty sure she followed that up with immediately after.
Live on TV?
Yes.
That's the point where the response.
You can't see that in the BBC.
She did.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
And the fact that actually that it's probably still on YouTube. You can probably find it on YouTube somewhere, because it's not actually been sort of.
Well, I saw something the other
airbrushed
day,
out.
I thought it was the girl from Sky that did it, but.
DW says Sky did do it, John. Maybe more than one person did
Remember the blonde we were watching on Sky when we were doing the royal thing?
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was her, the skinny one.
What was that? Sophie Ridge?
Whatever, but I'm pretty sure it was her.
I
Oh,
don't
so
know.
Shalini's going to post it in your Telegram, so we can have a look at it later.
We can have a look at it after the fact, yeah. But it was someone. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, I'm pretty sure that is what the NHS think of this man. But then again, I'm pretty sure that's what they think of pretty much every health secretary going.
Well, so this takes it back to something that I'd come up with when we were talking about Boris's confidence vote, remember?
Yeah.
Which is, it was the whole thing a setup.
In what sense?
Well, was it just a theatrical ploy for us pros to watch? And absolutely, the whole thing had already been pre-planned by, the Conservative MPs as such.
Well, I did
And
say
it was just an act to make them look weak, which then makes, maybe using Sun Tzu's doctrine of war, when your enemy looks strong, make yourself look weak.
Have you ever seen the film Wag the Dog, Yuri?
No, I've had a number of people recommend it to me, and I do need to
You guys
fit it in somewhere.
So
you need to watch Wag the Dog.
So John,
Yeah.
tell Yuri your Wag the Dog theories.
What ones? The whole film is basically a playbook on how to manage any kind of situation, but in particular a foreign war that allows you to distract from domestic troubles.
Yes, Yuri, that's absolutely fine. No problem at all. So we will go in within this conversation for 20 more minutes maximum, and then our guest will have to leave, which will be no problem at all.
And in fact, if anyone would like to see a little clip of Wag the Dog, I made a video about it today, which is on YouTube and BNT.
Yes, so you can go
called Calico Kitten.
So it is definitely something I think you need to watch, because it's very interesting.
And you got to remember, this movie was made in 1997, so that was 25 years ago.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting indeed. Right, John, where do we go from here then? Where do we go from here? Last 20 minutes, I'm handing over to you.
What about these guys that have been caught in Russia? These British.
Oh yeah,
British citizens.
So
He's been sentenced to death, I heard today. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, see, I'm a bit confused, because my understanding is it's not Russia that's got them.
No, it's apparently
GPS or something.
It's the Donetsk region in Ukraine.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's a Russian court that's done this, or if it's some kind of ad hoc paramilitary group,
Like
which
militia of
is
some sort.
Yeah. So it's a bit like everything in war. It's a bit confusing.
Well, it worries me a little bit, because is not killing British citizens who are technically prisoners of war an act of war?
Well, see, this is the problem.
Is that not an act of war?
Russia wouldn't do that.
Well, I know they
because
wouldn't.
they're not actually trying to provoke a war with the West, whereas the West is trying to provoke a war with Russia.
Yeah.
So the fog of war being the fog of war, the false flag being the right flag, is the whole thing a setup?
My only comment on the whole situation in Ukraine is, like, I have no idea what's going on, frankly.
No one really does, Yuri.
No,
That's
we don't either.
Everything you're getting out is so confused, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, none of it. The only thing you can say is none of it makes sense, does it? I mean, you look at. I mean, I remember I had a relative who was in the Gulf in '91, and that was the first kind of televised war, wasn't it? I think.
Well,
where you had kind
of. I remember watching the Vietnam War on TV.
I suppose, yeah, to be fair, yeah. I mean, probably the first one I sort of really took an interest in, because I had sort of skin in the game, as it were. And I'm thinking, like, when you think how much the technology has moved on since then, everyone on the planet now pretty much carries a smartphone. And yet the complete absence of sort of stuff coming out is, extraordinary. You think,
have you seen that picture of the rocket in sync?
Yeah.
The what?
The rocket in the sink.
Oh yeah, the one I made the video about.
Yeah, but I was looking at it again.
How did it get there?
Yeah, because the thing is, I was looking at it again the other day, And that hole above it is definitely smaller than the rocket. Yeah.
There's no way a rocket comes through your ceiling and leaves the ceiling up.
Well, no, and like I say, the hole, and I say that in inverted commas,
I don't even think
is
there is a
smaller
hole.
than the fucking rocket.
I don't think there is a hole.
It's you know, you can imagine like.
Remember the unexploded bomb
Yes.
that had landed without leaving any crater or any marks or anything. And remember they put a mask over its tail fin because they didn't want you to see the serial number.
Yeah. I mean,
even the media. I mean, there was quite a few instances where people have there was a interesting one there a week or two ago where they posted some dogfight footage which was actually from a video game.
Yeah. And the thing is,
like
that was actually the Russian Defense Ministry that did that. No, sorry, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Their verified Twitter account. They put up a video of a helicopter being shot down. They were. Oh, look at the Ukrainian soldiers shooting down this Russian helicopter. It was footage from a video game.
It's as I say, it's just impossible to know what's going on, really, and I don't.
Well,
for that reason, I've avoided taking a view on any of it, really.
Let's go back to 1991, back to Kuwait when the invading Iraqi army took the babies out of the incubators and left them north. And
that's the thing.
Who did the nurse turn out to be? The foreign secretary's daughter.
Even the whole basis for that, actually, I've sort of, at the time I was kind of kept caught up, like I think most of us were, in the sort of the drama.
Absolutely.
I've since looked at it again and thinking, the whole thing was broadly engineered.
And I'll tell you what, we go back to the conflict we're talking about now, Snake Island. Another hoax.
Nobody died.
Nobody died in Snake Island. John's namesake for this evening, the Ghost of Kiev. John, tell us all about the Ghost of Kiev.
The Ghost of Kiev doesn't exist. It was made up.
It was. And then we have, the Ukrainian human rights...
the head of the human rights who made up the stories about the Russian war crimes because she wanted the right decisions to be made by people in Ukraine about Russia.
Yeah,
and while she attests that these stories are 100% true, she has absolutely no evidence to prove them.
Yeah, but she said she needed to say them. She needed to say them. Yeah. I mean, this is all... And do you know what pisses me off the most? It's the media. The mainstream media.
Yeah,
because they question nothing. Yeah. And I thought their job was to hold governments and the like to account. But all they have done, especially over the last 2.5 years, is fed us a constant diet of infantile bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
They've not done their job, and that's why people like us are sitting here having this conversation now. That's why Chasing Dissent exists. That's why Yuri's Grand Shenanigans exist, because our hands were forced to create our own, I guess, ecosystem. And
absolutely.
And long may it continue, because I tell you what, none of us are exclusive. We don't exclude people. We welcome people. We welcome people from all stripes, all backgrounds, all religions, all creeds, all ideologies, all faiths, right?
Well, I mean, a good friend of mine's written a book, and he's a big fan of Ayn Rand.
Right.
And he's kind of... It's a really interesting book called Green with Envy. I'll stick a link in the chat. You can have a look. But,
okay.
And the whole point about it is really, trying to... Obviously, Ayn Rand's philosophy was effectively objectivism, which is, let's get to the sort of, as close as we can to the objective truth, and then make decisions based on that. And, that is the opposite of what we do currently, where, I mean, that's been my experience through, people decide what is the, quote, right decision, and then make the facts fit. or make the stats fit, I should say, probably, because that's people have already almost predetermined what they want the policy to be, and then you get the stats to support the policy, and I mean it's just, and it's a huge problem because you end up making catastrophic choices, as I think we've all seen in the last 2 years, based on failed or
Well, what it feels to me like is they are now looking for a scapegoat for the consequences of those choices. And so I think Russia is, Russia for certainly the time I've been alive, which is 32 years, but obviously a lot longer than that as well. They have always been the West's #1 boogeyman, right? They're always, the Red Scare. They are the fallback sort of boogeyman. And it just seemed so convenient to me that you've got leaders here, you've got Joe Biden blaming Russia for these economic crises that we're in now, the cost of fuel, the cost of living, and things like that. They're blaming Russia, and deflecting from the fact that they shut down economies for 2 straight years, which has quite clearly caused the economic situation that we're in. So the media just seem to be backing that up.
They're just a propaganda wing of government now.
It's a sort of, we're in a post-truth world, it feels to me at the moment. Where that I mean, I read some stuff the other day, people talking about, and there's no doubt that certain things are going to be a problem. The gas market is clearly heavily influenced by what's going on in Russia, and so although
well, is it
because we only get 3% of our gas from Russia?
Yeah, we do, but I mean the market is,
but wholesale gas is 74% cheaper than it was at the same time.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's kind of like,
it's profiteering. There's no other word for it.
There's no doubt about that.
France puts a 4% cap on energy rises for all the energy companies. Why can't the UK? Why are we getting 54% increases in retail gas prices? Crazy.
Put it this way: when I drive to France, I'm seriously considering fueling my tank the other side of the Eurotunnel because it's cheaper over there now.
Yeah, well, you should buy some color gas. Bring it back.
I mean, that's the thing that it really bothers me. What's going to happen in the coming winter? I mean,
people are going to die.
Well, exactly. People are going to die because I mean, I can't afford my house is going through. I'm on an electricity meter, a top-up meter.
Yeah.
And John will tell you, £189 on my electricity meter. How long was it saying it would last, John?
Was it 27 days?
27 days.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. How is that sustainable? And I can't afford that. Okay, I can't afford that. But I've got kids, and I will do everything I can to ensure that they're heated and eating. Right? That
millions of people in that same position. I've got family in the same position.
And,
that got no hope of meeting those bills, and all the other costs that they're going to have to meet. Council tax. I mean, and it's the same old story. Like the laptop class, and I'm one of them. I mean, I banked, and I won't tell you, but I banked a significant amount of cash in the first year of the COVID.
Right.
Because I wasn't commuting to work. I wasn't spending 30 quid a week on coffee and bloody crap. And literally at the end of the year, I went out and, bought a new car with the cash that I'd banked. Not brand new, but, upgraded to a much newer model on the, because of the fact that, I was working for the public sector, so still on full salary, with almost no costs of going to work.
Yeah. You really weren't affected. Well, the only effect on you was positive.
Pretty much. And I think that's why so many people in we'll call it the laptop class.
They never wanted it to end.
They never love it because
and the ones that really don't want it to end are the doctors. Because they don't actually need to see sick people anymore.
No.
And the people that are going to be the hardest hit are going to be sort of hourly paid workers that have to commute to work. I mean, they're going to be absolutely destroyed. come the winter.
And the
people-
self-employed, the people like
self-employed.
me who lost their businesses.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
pensioners are going to be
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah,
because the prices, because our government have refused to do anything about this, and I've said this, Yuri, I've said this on the show for about a month now. I do not give any world leaders any credit, as you might know, except for I think Emmanuel Macron deserves one thing and one thing only, and I'll give credit when it's due.
I don't even know if he put that in, because I think that's a long-standing thing in France.
Well, regardless, he's still honoured it, isn't he? Right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
it is legislated in France that the energy companies cannot increase their, and it was heavily reminded upon them this year that they cannot increase their prices upon the consumer more than 4% in 1 year. Now, our government could step into Parliament right now, this late at night, if they wished, and legislate that. They could say, right, we're gonna make sure that those companies cannot raise their prices more than 4% on what it was this time last year.
Yeah.
They could, and they
you
don't.
know what's driving us to the bottom is the green agenda, because this whole race to carbon zero is a complete and utter myth.
It's a
It just
nonsense. It's a
it can't be done.
nonsense.
And that's what's driving us to the bottom. We are suffering because of carry.
And I think the point, I mean, I've had this conversation a number of times in recent weeks, is that, I consider myself an environmentalist. I don't want to see the planet destroyed, but
Nobody does.
at the same time, no, I mean, obviously, but at the same time, there's a pragmatic reality that, we are literally putting people into fuel poverty.
Yes.
To a catastrophic extent.
Yes.
Because of the green agenda, when, we could have ample supplies of gas, we have ample supplies of coal, and, the trade-off, the sort of...
I watched a clip today, and it was a governor in America, and they were showing proudly all their electric vehicles and the electric vehicle filling station, the chargers and all that.
I saw that, yeah.
And the guy said, where does the electricity come from? And the woman goes, well, it comes from the building. and then she goes, ask the guy that runs the power company. And what did he say? Well, our grid is 95% supplied by coal.
Yeah.
So your electric car runs on coal. It doesn't matter if it's an electric car or not. If the electric's coming from coal, the car's running on coal.
And on that note, John, our guest does want to get off promptly at half past. So shall we let our guest go?
Yes, absolutely. And
I'm going anyway.
Thank you very much for joining us, Yuri. It's been great.
It really has.
My pleasure, guys, and it's been very interesting. So happy to come along again sometime, and maybe I'll even do some preparation next time.
Oh no, we don't prepare.
We
don't prepare.
If you're at all unprepared, the best preparation is probably to consume a bottle of wine or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I've been dry tonight, so that's maybe the answer. Anyway, thank you guys, and I'll speak again.
Cheers, Yuri.
Thank you, Yuri.
Cheers. Bye.
See you later, Pete.
Bye.
See you.
Right. And we can go back to the main frame now. Yeah. How's there any? So that was at Hotel Lubyanka on Twitter, Yuri Bezmenov's ghost and host of the Yuri's Grand Shenanigans event.
No, that's not his real name, Vaughn. Come on. You're dealing with professionals here.
So, did you enjoy our conversation with Dave?
What is it? I've forgotten his real name.
What?
Anyway, I'm not going to say it.
What, James?
No, that's not his real name.
Kevin?
Is it not Frank?
Jeff?
Let me be frank. So, I mean, we do our show last night, and the fucking news has gone daft today. Absolutely daft.
Absolutely.
All those things we were talking about.
Well, some of the things that we were talking about have been utterly suppressed, like the man who drove his car into a crowd in Berlin.
We even had John Barrowman on last night talking about it.
Yeah, I'm standing here in the street in Berlin. I'm still pretending to be American,
Yes, I'm American today.
I'm definitely American tonight. Fucking hell, lad! He drove up the curb into the fucking.
Some speed.
I mean, he drove into a crowd at some fucking speed. Oh, aye. Fucking John Barrowman. What is he, John?
Well, I think he's mentally unstable.
Didn't he?
I tell you what, though, don't let him tap you on the shoulder.
I was going to say, isn't John Barrowman a sort of Me Too type? Wasn't he sort of Me Too'd because he was running around was it the pantomime with his dick out?
Yeah, tapping people on the shoulder.
Yeah,
Apparently
tapping people.
Rather well endowed.
Apparently, he likes. John Barrowman is partial to a cock slap, John.
Yes.
To giving one, not. Well, I
Of course
don't
he's
know.
a jock. Yeah, he's Scottish. Did you not know he was Scottish one?
Yeah, John Barrowman's Scottish, and so in most of the time he will talk with an American accent until he's being used in Scottish independence adverts. And then all of a sudden he is the single most Scottish person you will ever hear.
Reverts back to Ouija.
Yeah.
So what? That's someone did a skit on Nicola today. It was really good. It was all about her promising the next, referendum.
Yeah.
And she's been doing it since 2016. The latter half of this year, next year, this year, next year. And she just that woman just gets my goat.
Honestly, we're going to do it next year.
Honestly.
We're going to. Nicola, get your fucking ferries built first, and then we'll talk.
Is she not sending them to Turkey to finish them off or something?
I don't know.
A malicious rumour.
I honestly don't know. Vaughan says, how could I know that he was Scottish? He sounds like a Yank. Yes, that is very put on. It's not real.
It's pretty damn fake.
So even
although I'll be fair, I was watching a movie with Jared Butler in it the other night.
Yes.
And he was meant to be an American.
Yeah, Gerard Butler can't do American accents.
He sounded worse than Sean Connery.
It's like Liam Neeson trying to do an American accent. I don't know where you are.
To be sure.
I don't know. You don't. But I have a very particular set of skills. Liam, you're supposed to be sounding like an American. I am sounding like an American, okay?
Was it? Who was it that's actually not too bad? Was it James McAvoy? He's not too bad.
No, he's good. He's good at the old English accent. He is.
Yeah.
He's very good at the English accent.
He comes
You're
from
not.
Paisley.
He's very Scottish, but you're not very good at the English accent. You do try though.
Oh, Dave, surely not.
What do you mean, surely not? Surely not.
Oh, Dave, I thought it was better than that.
No, listen. I thought I was better.
I thought I could do it.
No, still very Scottish, I'm afraid.
I thought I could. I thought I'll need to practice. I thought I could do it.
It sounds like wee Dougie's had a bit too much of a fix and is falling down in the street, John.
He's a jacket.
Aye, wee mental Dougie.
Paisley boy. Who the fuck said that?
That was Shalini, John.
Fucking British shithole.
So Sore Arms says Scotland has gone from a nation with an outstanding education system, a proud culture of not taking any shit, into a fucking woke joke by the SNP.
Yep. Well, yeah. I can't argue.
I mean, you could literally go to prison for insulting someone at your dinner table, John.
I could probably go to prison, yeah. Right now, because of what I've said.
You're a journalist.
Are we allowed to get away with it?
There are certain loopholes, and even on the online harms bill, there are certain loopholes for journalists.
Oh, okay. What about,
That's very interesting, actually, because
well, that guy wasn't a journalist; he was a comedian, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, but I've seen something very interesting. So, representatives for Hope Not Hate have today in Parliament tried to get the journalistic loophole shut down on the online harms bill, citing as an example of why this can't be allowed. Rebel media.
Well, what's Rebel Media done?
So, according to Hope Not Hate, rebel media are racist, discriminatory peddlers of misinformation, but they're allowed to call themselves journalists and exempt themselves from the online harms bill. One of the other things that they said, which really burned in here, was very interesting, was a lot of these people that are calling themselves journalists have already been banned from many online platforms, but when the harms bill comes into effect, they will be able to demand their return and the companies will have to comply.
Yeah, quite rightly so.
Quite rightly so. And I'm looking forward to that day, John.
Yeah, Hope Not Hate are they again are an antithesis of their name.
No, yeah, they are propaganda peddling, lying smear merchants who use labels and tags that they clearly either don't understand or know they are lying about.
Yeah, they provide more misinformation than any independent journalist.
I mean, they definitely provide a level of misinformation. Absolutely, they do. And I mean, I would love to have that conversation. I'd love to have a representative from Hope Not Hate on Chasing Dissent After Dark. I'd love to have that conversation because whilst they have not labelled and smeared us in any way, shape or form, and they haven't, they may do one day if we grow our platform any bigger.
We're not big enough yet.
But whilst they have not done that, I would like to understand some of the definitions that they use, right? Militant Mushroom says, am I right in thinking that they have some kind of funding from, I'm assuming you mean the Open Societies Foundation as well? I believe that there is, I believe there could be at least a stream of income coming from that way. I would have to double check that, but I believe you could be correct. But it's very telling that some of their representatives very much publicly have supported people like Antifa, who, in my view, are a terrorist organization. And I don't use that term lightly.
They fulfill the criteria.
I don't use that term lightly. You know, I try my best not to be hyperbolic, and I try my best to not say things that I don't think are I think are not true. And from everything I've seen, this organisation that claims it's not an organisation, Antifa, do, I would say that you're right, they fit the criteria, they fit the bill. They use violence in order to further political goals and political ends. Their members of Antifa have killed people. That has happened. They have killed people. I mean, someone was they've shot people dead. Members of Antifa have. They've beat people to death. And all for furthering, in the goal of furthering political aims. And I would say that is terrorism. I would.
No, I agree with you. You won't get any argument here.
But somehow,
no argument here, mate.
But somehow, people that work for and represent Hope Not Hate can be ideologically aligned with people that have done this, right? And Vaughan says in the chat, Antifa are black bloc thugs, nothing else. Look at what they've done to Andy Ngo over the years. Absolutely true. I mean, the man literally had to flee the United States to come here because of what they gave him a brain hemorrhage, for fuck's sake, I believe.
Yeah.
When they attacked him, and yet an organisation like Hope Not Hate smears Andy Ngo instead of the people that attacked him and gave him a brain hemorrhage.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
that's fair.
But the problem is, Hope Not Hate have pull, swing, and influence within our parliament.
Yeah.
And that worries me. It worries me greatly. Do you want to end on a high note, John? Is there anything you want to say?
I can't think of anything. You've got to put a dampener on things.
Come on, John. Bring us back to the light, John.
I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Now you're on big screen.
Think what?
You're on big screen for everybody now. The spotlight is on you.
I don't know Mark could have been Harley.
What's that?
Mark's got a Harley.
What's what?
Mark Changizi's got a Harley.
He's got a Harley.
Yeah, bastard.
Yeah, I was going to say that must make you pretty jealous, right?
Yeah.
Do you want another Harley, John?
Yeah.
Do you know what I want? I want a fuck off big trike. I want a trike.
Yeah, do you?
I do.
They're quite hard to ride. Fast.
Yeah, but I ride mobility scooters, John.
Yeah, okay.
I know how to control one. But the thing is, the one vehicle,
Yeah.
I've always said to myself, I know I've made it when I own this vehicle. It's a paramotor trike. Do you know what one of those is, John?
Is that one of the ones that you can take off?
You can fly it, yeah. You can fly it. Yeah. You can get them for about £6,000.
That's not bad.
It's not
you
bad
have to
at
do
all.
some sort of license thing.
Not if you keep it below a certain height.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
I want my own ability to fucking fly myself across the channel if I need to, John.
Yeah.
Right? They want to get tyrannical. I'll go to the field. I'll fucking strap the wife and kids to the side and I'll take off. Bye, fuckers.
Bye, motherfuckers.
Bye-bye.
It'd be better if you could fly across the Atlantic, wouldn't it?
Well, you would crash eventually. Yes, Vaughn, a flying trike. You can get them on eBay. You can get them on fucking eBay.
Yeah, but you're not going to run around the streets on it. It's basically a big lawnmower engine strapped to a fan with a parachute, isn't
Absolutely, but it'll get me out of here.
Yeah.
It'll get me out of here. You know, there are YouTube channels literally dedicated to people who have the version that you just strap to your back.
Mm-hmm.
And they just fly around. They just...
Paragliders.
Yep, whenever they feel like it, they strap this big fucking thing to their back, and they take off, and they just fly around.
Yeah.
It's almost a jetpack. It's almost a jetpack.
But not quite.
They have races across America every year.
Mm-hmm.
They race on them across America. And, you know, they've got to make
and
schedule...
how many weeks do they take to do that?
Oh, it takes a while, John. They're not very fast.
No, I know. Especially if the wind's blowing.
Yeah. They're not very fast. And in fact, really, speeding up and slowing down your fan really controls your lift. It doesn't really control how fast you go forwards. Really just controls your lift.
Yeah.
But they look like so much fun. They do.
An auto gyro. They look fun. I've been up in one of them.
They do look fun. They
are quite fun.
That's the secondary vehicle. I would settle for an auto gyro.
But they're more expensive.
Yeah. But also less likely to kill you if the engine fails. So.
Yeah, because you can auto rotate.
Yeah, you can auto rotate back down to Earth. Whereas with the paramotor, if you get a hole in your parachute, you're pretty fucked.
Yeah, you would be. Yeah, unless you have. Do you not have an emergency parachute that you can throw?
Of course, you have an emergency parachute. Everyone has. But the auto gyro.
Everyone has an emergency parachute.
The auto gyro, in some respects, is a bit more appealing, and that's purely because fixed wing or rotating. Because a parachute, you've got to fold it, you've got to make sure it's all correct. Adam says, I used to fly with a senior researcher from AstraZeneca. Oof. He did dives in his microlight like being on a roller coaster from Leicester Airport. That sounds like too much fun, to be honest. My grandmother, bless her heart, flying to Spain tomorrow, John. Well, if her flight isn't cancelled at 6 o'clock in the morning, nobody knows, do they? At the moment, nobody knows if their flight is going to be cancelled. It's like turning up to the airport and checking in for the lottery. Just are you going to get on your plane? So, what are you reading? You seem to be.
Yeah, I'm just having a look through Twitter to see if there's anything. Yeah. So what the fuck is this pish? Why did Prince William do some undercover big issue selling thing? What was all that? Some sort of stunt?
Well, it sounds like a stunt, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to see how the plebs live, John.
Yes, I'm going out to sell the big issue.
I'm going to do it undercover, except every single person on the planet knows who I am.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that show, Undercover Boss?
I may have seen parts of an episode.
So the concept is.
I know the concept. Yeah.
So the boss of a big corporation or organization puts on some shitty makeup and goes undercover, and all of these employees pretend not to know it's the boss so that they can get some free shit at the end of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the concept. It's like, oh, I was so touched by your sob story that I bought you a house and given you $10,000. Oh, thank you for giving me a house and $10,000.
No, I'm fucking quitting.
But what is going to come of this? I'm going to send you to the barbers and let you spend a night in the grounds of Mummy's house. Just what is the point in this?
There's no point. It's virtue signaling for the rich.
Yeah, but even if he's virtue signaling, who is he pandering to? Who is he pandering to?
Well, the great British unwashed, they think he's wonderful, don't they? Oh, our next king.
Well, he's not our next king.
Well, maybe. We'll see.
I don't think there should be any king or queen. You know my position on this.
Yeah, I know.
You know my position on this.
Don't know how long Charles would last anyway.
Yeah, but I was talking to my wife the other day, and I was like, imagine if he did take the throne, and then they eventually started putting him on the money, and then he'd been on the money for about a year, and then he dies.
Won't matter because money's all going to be digital.
Yeah, we can hope that that's not going to be the case, John. Let's hope.
Why can you only take? Well, I used to be able to take £500 out a cash line at one point. Now the maximum I can withdraw is £250.
No, that's not your bank. That's the cash point itself. So it depends what cash point you're using. For example, I'm with Barclays, yeah?
Okay.
And if I go and withdraw from a Barclays cash point, I can withdraw £500. If I go and withdraw from another bank's cash point, maybe, but maybe not. And then if you use what's called a note machine cash point, which appear to be popping up everywhere, they're £250. So
why?
it's I think it's because they only have a certain amount of cash. They're not actually a bank, and they want it fairly to go around. Yeah. Although what you can do is simply take out $250, put your card back in, take out another $250.
Okay.
Because the daily limit of 500 is on your account.
Yeah.
Although I would love to be able to go to a Barclays cash point and withdraw £500, John. I'd love to. I can't do that. Can you?
No.
No.
I'm just mentioning the thing because when I was moving money from I really don't want to go into it, but
when he was hiding money.
Cash is king. Cash is king.
Cash in the mattress.
Yeah. Anyway, what else are we going to talk about?
I think we should think about wrapping it up, John.
Yeah.
I do. I think these good people, these fine people, these lovely people, these dandy people have spent enough time being bored by us tonight. Although, I do have one request for you all. That's one request and one request only. Actually, I've got about 7 requests, but we'll start with the first one, which is, if you haven't already, whatever platform you're on, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, and please share it out. Just click that share button. Go on, send it out on all your social medias. Send us out into the ether. And the second question... Ether. Atmosphere.
Atmosphere.
No, that was awful.
Atmosphere.
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 Not more. Mo.
More.
No.
More.
No, not more. Mo.
Atmosphere. Do not talk to me. I've had enough. Anyway. Right.
And one more thing before we let you wonderful people go. If you do enjoy these shows that we do, and if you have £1 a month spare, and I know many people don't, by the way. Yeah, but
more.
Yeah, but just £1.
One
or more, if you can afford it, then please consider coming over to patreon.com/chasing Dissent, or indeed subscribestar.com/chasing Dissent, and giving us just a little monthly pledge. And there will be other bonus stuff that you will get from us when we can be bothered for doing so. And we do really appreciate it, because it does help keep the lights on here. And yeah, we would love you forever.
Maybe even the next time there'll be a new outro to go with our new intro.
Sauron says, don't support Patreon woke wankers. Well, you use the service of your choice. That's why there's more than one available.
Was it not Sauron that asked for Subscribestar?
It was. And
did we not provide that service? And he did subscribe.
He did, and now we're going to use that money to help advertise the show, aren't we, John?
I hugged my phone up.
Because we've thought of a bit of a marketing ploy. Yeah. We won't tell you what it is. We won't tell you what it is, but we thought of a bit of a marketing ploy that might be pretty cheap. So we will see.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I'm just queuing up the outro. That's the one, John.
So it's good night.
No, that's not how you end the show. Fucking hell! At least give them something.
Thank you, one and all, for attending this episode 22 of After Dark.
Rude bastard.
With Yuri Bezmenov.
I tell you now.
Hotel Lubianco.
Yuri Bezmenov.
You know what Hotel Lubianco was, don't you?
No.
Was that not one of the KGB?
It's very possible, John.
Yeah.
It's very possible.
So, with that.
Yes.
Good night from me.
Good night, comrades. We will see you in the next revolution this coming Sunday, 8 p.m. Be here, or else.
See you on the other side.
We will see you then. Good night, everybody. Good night. Bye-bye.